Have you ever accomplished a goal only to find that it did not make you happy in the way that you thought it would? Have you ever achieved something you've struggled for just to discover that it did not end up being the solution to your problems? Humans are an extremely goal-oriented species. While the rest of nature seems fairly content just to perform the necessary tasks for daily survival, the human race cannot seem to separate itself from the constant pressure to do the next best thing, climb the next highest hill. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. The problem lies with how we approach our goals. Other creatures of the animal kingdom don't seem to feel the need to have many possessions. They don't strive to overachieve or look good for others. Perhaps man's unique self-awareness is at fault. Perhaps his increased brain capacity, or perhaps something else, but whatever the reason, it seems that mankind feels some sort of emptiness that is not felt by other creatures, and so seeks to fill that void. There are many ways we attempt to do this. If you've ever bought something on an impulse, eaten more than usual when under emotional stress, or pretended to be something you weren't, you know firsthand that this phenomenon exists. It often happens that we feel like achieving some goal or obtaining something will make us happier, but when we actually do this, we often find that this is not the case. Sometimes we get so fixated on something we desire that it begins to occupy all or most of our attention and thought. This pattern can be very unhealthy and is a hindrance to our happiness. Not only this, but a strange phenomenon often occurs where our excess of desire for a certain thing, or our unwillingness to give it up once we have it, becomes the very thing that prevents us from getting that thing or from deriving any satisfaction from having it. This is an example of non-duality in Taoist philosophy. In the world of spirituality, the term non-duality has multiple definitions, but we will focus now on the definition that is most closely concerned with Taoism. Many are familiar with the symbol yin-yang. This symbol is used often in Taoism to communicate the concept of non-duality. The message of yin-yang is that the world and universe are in a constant state of balance, a balance which is maintained through the existence of opposition. While we tend to view two opposite things as contradictory and mutually exclusive of one another, it is actually the opposing nature of things that allows them to exist at all. Long is only long because short exists. Cold would not be cold without the existence of hot. If you removed difficulty from the universe, ease would have no meaning at all. Therefore, all things that appear to be opposite are really one, and in this way the universe is kept balanced and harmonious. Non-duality can also refer to a truth which is simultaneously true and false. While most of us are not used to looking at the universe in this way, there are many situations in which two opposing facts are simultaneously true. For example, a child may be told by a parent that they are loved by that parent unconditionally. While it may be true that this parent will always have a tie to this child that will never be severed, there are in fact aspects of this child that the parent does not love, such as a tendency to talk back or procrastinate. Since we tend to love the things in others that we love in ourselves, and since we are most frustrated by the negative attributes of others that remind us of our own failings, a child of a parent is sure to display both tendencies, and therefore will have aspects a parent finds lovable, and others that the parent will not be able to appreciate. To further understand this concept as it relates to having and non-having, let's look at some more hypothetical situations. These examples are hypothetical, but they are examples to which we can relate, since they occur relatively often. First, let's look at a hypothetical situation of a man who cannot bear the thought of being abandoned. His greatest desire is for someone to love him for who he is under all circumstances, and his worst fear is to be abandoned by those he loves most. Let's say this man meets a nice girl and they decide to be married. He and his wife both work, and one day she tells him a story of something funny a man she works with said to her. He listens and nods politely, but cannot help but wonder if she finds this coworker attractive. One day they go to the mall together, and the wife points out a poster of a good-looking model wearing a stylish pair of pants. She mentions that she likes the pants, and her husband begins to ruminate on whether or not this model is more attractive to his wife than he is. After months of similar, seemingly benign instances, he finally cannot contain his discomfort and blurts out to his wife, "Well, if all these guys are so great, why don't you marry one of them?" His wife is startled and hurt by his comment. They spend the rest of the evening in quiet discomfort as the husband ruminates and the wife wonders why he's being so possessive. If this pattern continues, their relationship will suffer more and more. Thus, the man's paralyzing fear of being abandoned ends up becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. He has his wife, but his fear of her leaving him puts an unignorable pain and strain on their relationship. He has her while simultaneously not having her. This concept is not only limited to relationships. A competitive diver who cannot bear the thought of losing may practice long hours honing her craft, only to choke when the day to compete rolls around as a result of nerves. A person who saves up for years to finally buy the car of their dreams may only drive it rarely, opting to leave it covered in the garage rather than risking scratches or weather damage, and thus never really gets to enjoy it. Perhaps a soccer player will become obsessed with his dream to play on a professional team. He trains harder than anyone else is willing to, pays for coaching that most can't afford, and gets his body in shape to a degree other players can't compete with. One day, his dream seems closer than ever when he is spotted and offered a place on a championship team. Faced with the risk of attenuating and losing the opportunity of a lifetime, he wraps up his grueling training routine even more. He keeps his pace on the team, even making a name as their star player, but cannot enjoy the experience because of the immense pressure he feels to perform. He has become a slave to his dream. In his desperate struggle to hold on to it, he finds that he now enjoys soccer less than he ever did, because it is no longer a game, it is his master. So, what does one do about this? Well, the answer is simple, if not always easy. The first step is to objectively assess your situation. What controls you? What do you spend most of your time thinking about? What has the power to get you most triggered or upset when it doesn't work out the way you expect? Chances are that the thing that came to your mind when these questions were asked is probably the thing you need to learn to let go of if you want to be able to find true inner peace. Peace cannot exist in a mind that is constantly in turmoil over the future, or whether or not something will happen that is hoped for. In order to experience this, you need to learn to let go of whatever it is that might be causing you so much distress. For some, this thing is approval from others. For others, it is financial security. For many, it is a specific person or loved one they feel they cannot bear to lose. Understand that you can never really have this person or this thing until you learn to let it or them go. Learning to let go is a very personal journey, and so it will look very different for each person. Some people may find the need to cut themselves off from the thing they want completely, at least for a time, while they learn to live without it. For others, this will be a process of learning to regard the thing they want with a different perspective. A process that is found to be very effective when learning to let go is this. Imagine a scenario in which the thing you want or are holding on to is suddenly ripped away from you forever, with no chance of ever getting it back. Imagine how you would feel, what you would do, how you would act. Allow yourself adequate time for this exercise. Focus on allowing and being present with the feelings that may surface. As a warning, this exercise can bring up difficult emotions, but allowing yourself to feel these things is the only way to healthily process them and move on. When you feel you've spent enough time with these emotions to understand them a bit better, now play through in your mind what your next steps would be. How would you move on without this thing? What would you do to recover? For example, a man learning to let go of an attachment to his wife may imagine her dying suddenly in a car crash or leaving him for someone else. This man would need to sit down with these emotions that come up and just allow them to be for as long as he needs or seems appropriate. Then he would imagine how he would try to rebuild his life after the loss of someone he loved so much. Would he stay at his current job? How would he take care of his children? Who could he talk to about his feelings when he felt the need? Would he prefer to remarry or to stay single? How would it look for him personally to eventually recover from this tragedy? Doing this exercise is a very interesting thing because for a person feeling these kinds of attachments, imagining the loss of these things in such detail is usually the last thing that one wants to do. However, doing this exercise grants perspective. It helps one to put things in their proper places and order. It also helps one to learn to truly appreciate having what he or she has. It is impossible to fully appreciate that which one is terrified and unwilling to give up. A person cannot truly appreciate a thing under these circumstances. He or she only fears not having it. Perfect love and natural abundance cannot exist in the same place as fear. If they come up in conflict, one has to go. The only difference is now you can choose which one will go and which will stay.